Right now, 10 o'clock, the first day of early voting in Texas, officially in the books now, from Denton to Collin to Tarrant, Dallas counties. Big turnout and some very long lines. This was all across the Metroplex, and it was all day long. Good evening, I'm Doug Dunbar, streaming live as we do, always on CBSN DFW. You cannot say there is voter apathy tonight. Some of the longest lines that we found today were in Richardson, and we have team coverage tonight as we get underway. We're going to start there and start things off with our Caroline Vandergriff.
Some voters here in Richardson waited 4 to 5 hours today to cast their ballots. Since early voting runs through October 30th, we asked them why they couldn't just come back another day.
I just wanted to get it checked off and make sure I did my civic duty and make the scene in case it got worse.
Jim Mulvihill tried to vote at the Richardson Civic Center on his lunch break today, but he didn't have 5 hours to spare. So he came back after he got off and ended up being one of the last few people in line before the 7 o'clock cutoff.
This is unbelievable.
The lines weren't as long at other locations in Dallas County.
I was in and out in 30 minutes.
But voters were just as committed.
It's very important. We need to vote, no matter who you vote for, but just go vote.
You really can't complain if you don't get out and vote. So I wanted to be first.
Dr. Pamela Burrell says she never misses a chance to cast her ballot.
My grandmother was very poor, and in her day, they had to save up for poll tax all year long. So she saved her pennies, and that's one thing she passed on down to all 9 of her kids and all bazillion of her grandkids, is that you have to vote.
Other voters say even with the threat of COVID-19, they wanted to vote in person versus mailing in a ballot.
I wanted to make sure that I got the job done.
And they hope their dedication inspires others to do the same.
Some people say, no, I don't have time today. So that's important for everybody coming to vote.
Again, early voting runs through October 30th. Some counties have special polling hours, so it's a good idea for voters to check with their county elections office about when and where they can vote. In Richardson, I'm Caroline Vandergriff, CBS 11 News.
Caroline, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Our team coverage will continue now. CBS 11's Andrea Lucia with more on today's high turnouts. I know you've been looking all through the night. Did we break any records?
Well, Doug, in just the last 15 minutes or so, we found out that Dallas County did break a record. It had the most votes cast on the first day of early voting. The Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins tweeted out that at least 59,809 voters cast their ballots today in this county. Those numbers are still being finalized, so they could go even higher. But if you passed by some of these polling places, as Caroline just showed us, there were lines showing us just how eager people were.
A rush of early voters ready to cast their ballot formed lines early. In Dallas County, the largest number of votes came in between 8 and 9 this morning.
And we were so excited to come here to vote.
In Tarrant County,
I want to get in there, I want to vote.
Voting peaked in the final hour before polls closed.
I think we see the first day numbers as a critical sign of where turnout is going for the rest of early voting and election day.
Charlie Bonner with the nonpartisan group Move Texas says enthusiasm is high. He recalled one friend's determination to vote today.
And he said, Charlie, this is 2020. He was like, a meteor could hit Earth tomorrow. And, I want to make sure that my vote is cast before anything else happens. And I was like, you know what? That is why people are in line today, because anything could happen in 2020.
Overall, Dallas County reports nearly 60,000 votes were cast on the first day of early voting, breaking previous records. In Tarrant County, almost 42,000 voters cast ballots, coming within 1,000 votes of what we saw in 2016. Across North Texas, voter registration has surged over the past 4 years, and voters will have more time than ever to get to the polls, with early voting stretching nearly 3 weeks long this year. Who all these voters are supporting won't be clear until Election Day. But SMU's Matthew Wilson says early voters are more likely to be Democrats.
The Election Day vote almost always skews Republican. The early vote is more Democratic. I think that will be true again this year, particularly because Democrats, on average, are more concerned about the pandemic.
Yeah, and that concern over the virus, he believes, is driving some voters to come out and vote early. Ironically, he says, creating some of those crowds that they were hoping to avoid. He did warn, though, against reading too much into what all this early voter turnout surge actually means, who it is good for, and which party benefits. He says in 2016, that was also a year where we saw records broken and a huge early voter turnout. Texas still went for President Trump. Reporting live here in Richardson, Andrea Lucia, CBS 11 News.